Thank you for being here today to honour and remember Bob. My name is Phil. Bob was my older brother. There are many wonderful aspects to Bob's life and many ways that he has touched our lives. He will be remembered as a wonderful husband, dad, grandfather, or Bobby as he is affectionately known by his grandchildren, a brother, a great mate, and to con an Aussie phrase, a real good bloke. I'll cherish the time I spent with him earlier this month. We sat for hours chewing the fat, laughing a lot, remembering the past deeds and mischief of our younger years. We cried a lot too when we talked about the road ahead. We talked that his legacy would live on forever through his family traditions and the closeness of the family unit, with Thursday night curries and Sunday night barbecues. Also about the wonderful memories and traditions we had growing up in Granity with our family. One of these was the Sunday roast, in a time when beef and lamb were classified as a cheap staple and pork and chicken were for special occasions. Hasn't time changed all that? We would alternate these lunches between our place and our grandparents'. Sometimes our lunch was late because Grandad would fall asleep and the stove would go out. Generally after lunch, and weather permitting, we would work around our grandparents' yard or head off to the beach collecting driftwood for firewood, beach combing, swimming in pools at low tide, and sometimes collecting mussels off the rocks. Dad would cook them up for us on a sheet of corrugated iron he had conveniently stowed away in the scrub for such occasions. We had a 1954 Kingsway Dodge car. Everyone got in for the ride, all 10 of us. Grandma, Grandad, Auntie Jean, Mum and Dad, and us 5 kids. I would think this would be frowned upon today. Some things you may or not know about Rob. In New Zealand, he went by the name Rob, Robbie, or Robert, depending on Mum's mood at the time, and when he crossed the Tasman, as Bob or Bobby. As a teenager, he was a projectionist at the Lyric Theatre in Granity. He absolutely hated horror movies, to the extent that he would lock himself in the projectionist box and turn down the sound or his monitor in the box and not watch it. He would sometimes miss the cue sign to change over projectors when the film would run out and the screen would go blank. Someone had to run up and bang on the door. I can't believe a Christopher Lee Dracula movie had that effect on him. Sometimes we'd just sneak in and bang on the door just for the hell of it. Rob had rheumatic fever as an adolescent. He spent many weeks in hospital and convalescing at home. They said he would have ongoing heart issues as he got older. I think Bob missed that memo. As I said before, Rob became Bob when he crossed the ditch, but he had another name too. He was affectionately known as Radar by his workmates, as they thought he looked like Radar O'Reilly of the 1970s sitcom MASH. Evidence can be seen in the 1974 Granity Fire Brigade photo. He's in the back row on your far left. He was also a disc jockey for 6NEW radio in Newman. He was so proud he sent a recording back home to us, and we played it and played it over. And he had this fantastic little intro ditty, and it sounded like this, and it all rhymed. Bob Hankinson, 6NEW, and he played Gene Pitney songs to death for the guys on the hill. Bob's first job was a milk boy, delivering fresh milk from the local farm, with Billy slung over his handlebars on his bike. Customers left their empty billies at the gate, and he came along and filled them up, then went back to the farm for more. There is a photo doing the rounds today, I think. The All Blacks and the Fremantle Dockers have lost a true blue supporter, loyal through good wins and bad losses. Hell, he's even got me watching Friday Night AFL now. Now, Bob was a fireman. Fireman, yes, in Australia, but he was a fireman for the Granity Fire Brigade before he moved on. I'll never forget the time our house caught fire. Now remember, our house was also, in the house was the local fire chief, our father. Anyway, Bob was working as a postie for the post office, and he would fill in at lunchtime for the telephone operators on the exchange. We had old phones and we were on a party line and would have to ring the operator to put us through to another person we wanted to call. Anyway, earlier that day I'd snitched the smoke out of Mum's packet of cigarettes, and then before she went next door to her Country Women's Institute meeting. The last thing she said was not to let the stove go out. So after she'd left and a wee while later, I put a shovel full of coal in the coal range and shut the door of the range, and then I thought I'd sit in the back porch and have a cigarette that I'd snitched earlier. I'd left the back door open. I thought I'd sit in the back and have the cigarette, but then, after a short while, I noticed there was an awful lot of smoke. And hell, I couldn't be producing that much, so I went back into the kitchen to investigate. Bloody hell, the wall was on fire behind the pot rack on the stove. I quickly poured a jug of water down the back of it, and the flames went out, so I ran next door to get Mum. She came running back, along with her Country Women's Institute ladies. They quickly formed a chain gang, passing the contents of Mum's airing cupboard out so they wouldn't be damaged by water. While this was happening, Mum rang for the fire brigade. Well, pandemonium broke loose at the post office as Rob was on the exchange relieving. He switched on the fire siren and yelling instructions on the way out. He got into the car and drove home. Mum had stationed me out on the front porch to wait for the brigade to arrive. As I was standing there out front, what I saw next was our old Dodge coming round the corner on two wheels, with Rob at the wheel. It came to a screeching stop, and then he realised all his gear was on the fire engine, so he had to wait for it to arrive. And when they did, they duly put out the fire. Well done, everyone. The fire chief's house is saved. Now, as you know, Rob played the bagpipes. He announced one day that he was learning the bagpipes to our granddad, a proud Scotsman, who duly said, "Only a true Scotsman can play the pipes." That made Rob more determined, and on Christmas Day later that year, Rob gave a rousing rendition of Amazing Grace and marched up and down our hallway to the kitchen where Grandad was sitting. When he spotted Rob, a great smile came to his face, and one could see large tears running down his cheeks. A really, really proud man. This showed the determination of Rob in all the things he ever did. Rob made our lives richer and fuller for knowing and being around him. Now that he has passed away, of course there is emptiness, pain, sorrow, and some confusion, and maybe even some anger at the death to a man just 66 years young. In many ways, the gift of Rob's life is still there with us. He will live on in our memories, in the stories we tell, and in what all of us have become because of knowing him. So I encourage you all to share not only today but tomorrow and in the years to come your wonderful memories and stories, and to share the pain of your loss as well. In this way, we will keep the gift of Rob's life alive. To Zubaydah, Nadia, Imran, Robin, Ayla, Zayden, Zeki and Zabella, we're all sorry we can't be there with you, sharing the grief and sadness at this time. But know that we are here with you all in spirit, and our thoughts and prayers are for you all. On behalf of Rob's overseas family, I'd like to thank you all for attending the service today, and also to those people tuning online.